Hi, it's me again, and loads of you have sent me the link to this story, and I had it bookmarked anyway. Of course I did. It's a TV license story. You know what I'm like by now, right? But it's a bit of a sad one, really, and it's a bit of a confusing one. And it does sort of make the point that we've all been trying to make for a long time about talking to the TV license enforcement officers in person. And we need to get that message out there. If there's one thing we can learn from this story, it's that we need to get the message out there more that do not talk to these door-to-door salesmen that work for TV licensing. Let's have a look at this story together and we'll talk about it all the way through as normal. Hey. I was threatened with prosecution for not paying my TV license. Women are being disproportionately impacted. And they are. That is a fact. More women are prosecuted for TV license offences than men. I don't know why that is. If I start giving reasons, I might sound a bit misogynistic, so I'm not going to give any reasons. But it is a sad fact. And we have to emphasise here that the only way you can be prosecuted for a TV licence offence is by watching something you shouldn't be watching without having a telly licence. So you watch something as it's being broadcast, record something that's being broadcast, or use BBC iPlayer without having a television licence. If you don't do those things, you don't need a licence. But the only way they would know is if you tell them. They cannot detect anything. So every time you see a story about a prosecution, it's because that person talked to a TV licence enforcement officer that knocked on their door. So if we can get the message out there more, you won't see any more of these stories. And the BBC will go bankrupt, obviously. But let's carry on. Hearing a knock on the door of her flat, Josine felt bewildered when a man told her he was from TV licensing and asked her if she watched television before telling her she should have been paying for a TV licence. She tells the Eye she genuinely didn't know she needed a TV licence, and if she realised, she would have never have bothered with having a television because she knew it would be an expense she couldn't afford. So, I mean, she didn't know. She didn't know. And if you didn't know, you didn't know, right? So she should have been given some leeway, which we'll get to in a minute, to buy a TV licence. But one of the bits that bothers me about this story most of all in the whole thing, and I'm not going to read all of it, it's quite long. If you want to read it, it's in the description below, you can go and have a look. But one of the bits that bothers me most of all is that line there. If she'd realised, she would never have bothered having a television because she knew it would be an expense she couldn't afford. Having a TV licence isn't based on you owning a television. Maybe a long time ago, not anymore. It's based on what you use your equipment to do, not whether you own the equipment or not. I haven't had a telly licence going on 10 years, and I've got loads of tellies. I've got a telly in every room of the house. Don't need one. Don't need one because I don't watch or record anything that's being broadcast or use BBC iPlayer. And they need to be more open with this. I mean, that gentleman knocked on a door. You know, this is why I couldn't be a TV licence inspector, right? Because if I knocked on a door and I saw a struggling woman with a couple of kids, a single mum, and she's saying, oh, I can't afford the telly licence, I'll get rid of me, whatever she's saying. I'm saying, look, all you got to do, don't watch anything that's been broadcast, don't record that, don't use iPad, and you don't need a telly licence. That's why I could never be one. But that's the problem, because these people, these TV licence goons, are paid by commission. So they're incentivised to not give that information out. They're incentivised to sell a licence. That's wrong in the start. They need to change, well, get rid of these people completely. But in the meantime, stop giving them commission. Josine is originally from Rwanda and moved to the UK in 2015. It was my first time renting by myself and I'd never had to pay for a TV licence before and I didn't know how it worked. I didn't really sit down to watch TV much because I do blah, blah, blah. Nobody told me this was a bill I had to pay. When you move into a new place for bills like electric and gas, they automatically send you letters. But I didn't know about the TV licence. So yeah, I've checked and Rwanda is a country that doesn't have a TV licence. So if you don't know, you don't know. She just recently moved here. I understand that she might not know that there's a TV licence fee. That's fair enough. But when you move into a new place like gas and electric, they automatically send you letters. I didn't know about that. She probably would have got a letter. I'm not saying guaranteed, but she probably would have got a letter from TV licensing at some point. Maybe she just didn't understand it and lobbed it or something like that. But yeah, if you don't know, you don't know, do you? On realising she should have been paying for a TV licence after the visit from TV licensing in November 2020, Josine, who lives in Basildon, London, last time I checked, Basildon was in Essex, but never mind, was mortified and apologetic. But she says the TV licensing officer reassured her and told her not to worry, as there's a misunderstanding. As long as she sorted out paying for a TV licence, she would be fine. Now, don't they normally try and sell you one on the doorstep? Because It says here, like, he told her about different methods of payment that Jones said has been during the first year. She didn't want to get too close to him, blah, blah, blah. So she made a phone call to sort it out. Normally, they would try and sell you one on the doorstep. They earn commission. Why would they walk away and say, make the phone call? Yeah, I don't know. That's weird, isn't it? Maybe because it's lockdowns there. I don't know. She says she called TV licensing and spoke to a woman, telling her she wanted to create a direct debit and pay monthly, and gave her her bank details. I even asked the woman if I was in trouble for not having a license. And she told me, no, it's all right. As long as you pay, you're fine. Which is true. I mean, if one of them knocks on your door and you don't have a telly license, you're not just going to straight get the fine and straight get the court case and all of that. They want you to pay. And you may have to pay for the time you was unlicensed, blah, blah, blah. Generally, there's no trouble for that. So how did she get prosecuted? One knocked on her door, didn't sell her a license. She's phoned up and tried to pay for a license. And then it says here, she promptly forgot about the matter, believing it had been resolved, but unknown to her, there had only been a one-off payment taken from her bank towards a TV license, rather than a direct debit. I didn't keep checking every month, as why would I, she says. You don't check things like council tax or whatever every month to make sure the direct debits are coming out. I do. I have my direct debits come out on the first couple of days of the month, and first couple of days of the month, I'm staring at the app on my phone, making sure I've still got some money left after it. And if she's that skint, then surely she should be keeping a much closer eye on the purse strings here, right? I mean, there's a few issues here. She probably genuinely didn't know there was a TV license fee, and then she got the man knock on the door. Is it her fault or TV licensing's fault that direct debit wasn't created? Is it her fault for not checking it was created when she's got other things to worry about? It's just a whole melting pot of problems in this one that ended up like this. The first time Josanne realised there was a problem was when she received a court plea letter asking her if she wanted to plead guilty or not guilty. I panicked and thought, what does this mean? She recalls. I didn't know what had happened or why I had to plead anything. I rang the number on the letter and spoke to a man in charge of prosecutions who told me that I hadn't been paying for my telly licence and that there was nothing I could do about this now. Feeling helpless, she didn't know if she should plead guilty or not guilty or what the repercussions would be. I didn't know if it would affect my immigration status or if it would affect my credit score, she says. Felt like my whole world was falling down and I didn't know who to turn to. In that situation, there's only one place I would turn to, and I don't like giving out plugs too much, but TV Licence Resistance Forum have heard everything and gone through everything. I would go and talk to them. I would go and talk to Black Belt Barrister. But that's only because I know they exist. She obviously didn't know they existed. But then she probably does know Google exists. As she said, I paid all the money I owed, even though it meant I could not afford food. When you're on benefits, paying all that money in one go affects everything. But I was so scared and terrified. Appeal took on Josine's case, and within days, the charges against her were dropped. Relieved to see the end of the deeply stressful experience, Josanne realised not everyone was as lucky. And now she started, after researching the issue, she realised there were many people struggling with poverty who were being prosecuted for her TV licence thing. So she's looking at it after the fact. But yeah, it's not that easy to get charges dropped. So I can't prove it, I don't know the ins and outs of this case, but here's what I would imagine. That goon that knocked on her door realised he wasn't going to sell her a licence for whatever reason. We don't know the conversation they had. So it's just gone, sign here, got her to sign something. And that's where it's all come from. You know, she needed to have signed something on that visit. Well, not necessarily to get into trouble, but he's obviously dobbed her right in it because he couldn't sell her a licence at the time. There's no way one of these goons would walk away easy. They want to sell you a licence. That's their job. That's how they pay their own bills. So he's obviously not sold one, gone back. Whether she's messed up the payment with TV licensing, whether that actually happened, we don't know. And she's got in trouble for it. But this whole thing, and all, it says here, look, there are 50,000 prosecutions brought by TV licensing in 2021. That's what it says here. Every single one of those prosecutions came about by the person dropping themselves in it with one of the goons that knocked on the door. One of the door-to-door salesmen from Capita TV licensing, whatever you want to call them. That's how it happened. There is no detection equipment. They can't possibly know what you are watching unless you tell them when they knock on your door or you let them in the property. That is it. And this is the message we need to get out so much more. She didn't know anything about this, right? And she's obviously, you know, she's moved to the UK from Rwanda, which means she's got the help of some charities out there or some national thing that deals with it. Why aren't they giving the information out about whether you need a TV license or not? The debt charities aren't giving the full information out. It's being spun by TV licensing's PR. They multi-million pound contracts with PR agencies to hide the truth of the fact that you can own a telly without having a TV license. And she's dropped herself. I know there's some inconsistencies in here, but this still came about by talking to the goon. If we can get that message out there more, that you don't need to talk to these people, then 50,000 prosecutions in, was it 2021, wouldn't have happened. So it's like the other story we talked about with the woman who had 75p in her bank. It's on the channel somewhere. There was another story, not similar, but, you know, same sort of sphere as this. And there's some inconsistencies there, and we don't know the whole story. But one thing I do know is if a goon knocks on your door and you don't have a telly license, they want to sell you a telly license, and they don't leave easy without you either slamming the door in their face or buying a telly license. And, you know, I've said it so many times on this channel. You open the door and they say, hello, I'm from TV licensing. Polite but firm. No thanks, mate. Close the door. And no trouble can come to you. They can't prove what you're doing in there. You shouldn't be watching stuff you shouldn't be watching. I will never, ever condone that. But the only way they would know is if you tell them. So, yeah, let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because that way, hopefully, I'll see you in another video again soon when I... Ta-da.